Welcome everybody to 52 Living Ideas. We are going through Bhagavad Gita. This is summary of Bhagavad Gita. Today we are going to do present summary of chapter 7 through 11. The format, Yogeshwar is going to present his summary of the chapter. I will listen to it closely and I will try to make a few observations. My observations are going to be at a much lower level than Yogeshwar's. If there is any conflict, please go with Yogeshwar's. More importantly, go back to Bhagavad Gita. More importantly, go back to your own experience. That's how it works. All right, so let's get started. We're going to start with chapter 7. Go ahead, Yogeshwar.
अथ सप्तमोऽध्यायः श्रीभगवानुवाच मय्यासक्तमनः पार्थ योगं युञ्जन् मदाश्रयः असंशयं समग्रं मां यथा ज्ञास्यसि तच्छृणु. A person who has his whole being attached upon me, now his whole attention is upon me now, whether it is related to the body, or it is related to his mind, or even is it related to his emotions, like he's totally attached to me. All his attention is towards me. Such a person, yogam yunjan madashraya, he is continuously in yoga, yogastha buddhi. He has an intellect that is with yoga. How does he know me? Krishna is saying, how he knows me is what I am going to tell you now. Why Krishna has used Maya Sakta Mana here? Because now, when we talk about the mind that is fully attentive towards me, because what you can do for the unmanifest, you cannot think about it in relation. What you can only do is pay attention to it because it is already there. When you think about it, when you make concepts about it, what happens is some concepts may be really related to it. They may take you towards it. Some concepts may drift you away from it. So you have to take care in that. But when you just pay attention, when you're paying attention to that unmanifest that is always there, then you'll never go wrong. Another thing is that Krishna has used Maya Sakta. He is totally attached to me. He has left all the attachments, and now the only attachment is the unmanifest. And when all the attachments are removed is when you can pay attention to the unmanifest. Because until then, your attention is towards the peripheral. It cannot be towards the center. And we have already looked at what attention means, what dhyana means in chapter 6. Attention is that which pulls your mind. Like when something pulls your mind, your attention is diverted towards it. Then there are two things that happen. One is that your attention is diverted towards it because you feel that it is true. So that which your attention is diverted towards, for you at that moment, it is true. If not, your attention would not have diverted towards it. It would just be like a pass-by. Then another thing also we need to realize is that when our attention is wholly directed towards one thing, that is when we truly find happiness. Without that, we don't find the happiness. For example, when we are watching anything, when we are listening to anything, if we are able to think about something else, then we won't be as happy with the lecture or with what we're looking at. But when we're able to direct all our attention towards it, So it's two-way. Either we're able to direct all our attention towards it, or that which we are looking at or listening to is able to capture all our attention. Both ways it works. We get to that moment of happiness when our attention is totally pulled. So this is what happiness means. Happiness doesn't mean something that you're going to get in the future. Happiness is about your attention. If your attention is completely engaged into something, then you are happy. So this is a continuous process. It is a moment-to-moment process. Why? Because it depends on your attention. The better you make your attention towards one thing, ekagrata, the more happiness you're able to get out of it. And Krishna now is talking about jnanam, savijnanam. Jnanam, in a way, it is related to the scriptures. It's related to the concepts that you make. Yes, they are true. Concepts are true. But then some concepts may lead you away from what is true. So Krishna says, savijnanam. That is with Vigyan. Vigyan means that knowledge which entails experience. It's not just a concept, but then it is a living experience. Now, that experience, it can be gotten from some scriptures, it can be gotten from those who have reached. So that experience is, you can get it from somewhere. But then until it is from somewhere, it is jnana. Even though they have experienced it, you have not experienced it yet. So until then, it's jnana. It's true because they have experienced it, but then it's not your experience. Until then, it's jnana. When does it become vijnanam? Visheshena jnanam. It becomes vijnanam when it becomes your experience. So Krishna is taking you towards that direction. Don't only leave it to the jnanam that you are Atman and you are distinct from this body. Not only that, but there's something beyond that as well. Experience it. Know it for real. And Krishna is talking about how durlabha this jnana is. Only some people reach. Out of thousands, only some people reach. And Krishna is not even saying some, he's saying kaschit. Kaschit means like near one, like one or two out of thousands reach there. Some people only reach there. Now, coming backwards, only some people reach there. But then to reach, you need to walk on the path. So out of like hundreds of thousands, some people walk the path. Out of millions even, some people are diverted towards this path. So Krishna is talking about three different perspectives. Some are diverted towards this path. Some actually walk the path after knowing it, that there is a path. And walking it doesn't mean that you've reached. So Krishna is saying that only some reach the path. Only some reach where the path leads towards, which is the goal. How do you have to know Krishna? How do you have to know the unmanifest? The unmanifest is that from which all the manifest comes out. Aham kritsnasya jagata prabhava pralayas-tatha matta parataram nanyat kinchidasti dhananjaya mai sarvamidam protam sutre manighana eva. I am that which from all the manifest comes out. That is also fine. But then it's not that now that I am the unmanifest and then there is something that is manifest, that is distinct from me now, because it has come from me. No, no. I am also within the manifest. Krishna is saying, Sutre mani ghana iba. Like there is a garland of flowers, let's say, and there is that thread that is running through the garland. So you can see the manifest as the flowers on the garland, and that which is not seen in between is that thread. That is the unmanifest. It is there even in the manifest. It is not so distinct from the manifest. But then, there is one thing about understanding it. So there are two perspectives of the unmanifest. One is that it's totally distinct from the manifest. And then it is also there in the manifest. If you get stuck with one view, what will happen is, if you only get stuck with one view that it is there in the manifest, so I can get it through the manifest. If you get stuck with that view, you will get stuck with only doing the rituals without the function in with it. When you get to that view that the unmanifest is so distinct from the manifest, it can never be seen in the manifest. What happens then is that you divide ritual from the function so much that the ritual can never reach the function. Even like, so what you'll do is never do the ritual. You'll never even take a step towards the unmanifest because it can never be reached by the manifest, because you're also part of the manifest as you are. So you can never reach the unmanifest. That is the distinction, the long distinctions you'll make. But what Krishna is trying to say is the unmanifest is both. It is so distinct, yet it is there in the manifest. Then Krishna gives small examples of what test we are going to have in chapter 10, that I am all the rasa that is all in all the waters. I am that tattva. I am what you get out of the water, that life you get out of the water. Now, water is there, but as we know, there are two perspectives that we need in real life. One is oxygen. Krishna says in chapter 10 as well that I am that which gives you the life out of all the air. I am that. And then Krishna here is saying, I am that rasa out of the water. I am that which gives you the life out of the water. Krishna, what he's trying to say is that try to see me in the manifest. That is like the most profound part of what I found about Gita, is that yes, we can think about distinction between the manifest and the unmanifest. But what Gita surely teaches us is that let the distinction be, however great you can make it, but then also try to see that unmanifest in the manifest. And that is when you see in the Upanishads that tattvam asi, that which is you is. Yeah? Because it has shown you the distinction, neti neti, that it can never be gotten to by words. But then it also shows you that oneness, that you are it. Don't run away, like you are it. Whatever you are what the unmanifest is. It is there. Don't try to make such a large distinction. So it brings both perspectives together, the large distinction and the indistinction between them as well. And out of all the Vedas, I am the Pranava. I am that Omkara. It is out of the Vedas. Now, what is normally said in Indian tradition is the Vedas are there, yes. But even though all the Vedas, at some point in time, they become lupta. Lupta means not that they are destroyed, because Vedas, as Indian philosophy takes it, that Veda, what Veda means is knowledge. Like Vida dhatu, which is the main verb that it's gotten out from, means knowledge. So Veda means knowledge. That knowledge is never destroyed. It's always there. But then, like, let all the knowledge become lupta, means doesn't meaning not meaning destroyed, but then not known to people in general. But then let the Omkara be known. Still, all the Vedas will come back. All the knowledge will come back. That's how profound Omkar is. It is like that which holds all the Vedas together, that which holds all life together. Because Omkara, rather than a concept, it is an experience. Because Omkara, rather than just being written in one place, it is part of you. It is part of what life is. And Krishna goes on that Ye chaiva satvika bhava rajasas tamasas chaye matta eve titan vidhi nattoham teshu te mai. And this is one thing that is really profound in a way that we look at the ultimate being so near sattva, we cannot see the ultimate in tamogun and rajogun. But Krishna is saying all the three gunas, they have evolved from me. It's not that it is just like the manifest evolving from the unmanifest. These three gunas are manifest. It's part of what you experience. So they've all come from Krishna, the unmanifest. That unmanifest is within the manifest. And not everyone can know this out of me. Who can know this? Only 4 types of people who are continuously putting their attention towards me, continuously loving me, get to know me. Who are those? Arto jigyansurartharthi jnani cha bharatarshab. Those 4 types of people are, first one is artha, other is jigyansu, the third is artharthi, the fourth is jnani. First one, the artha. The artha means he has gotten a glimpse of what happiness is. He has gotten a glimpse of what the ultimate is, but then he has lost it. And when you lose it, what happens is you want to get back to it with that much desire. Now, you see, the thing is here, this person is not yet there and he has a desire to get there. One distinction is that he has received that ultimate at one point in time. But at this point in time, he has lost it. A jigyasu is a person who has the desire, has it partly, and is walking on the path. Yeah. So he wants to know what the tattva is. He's not just in a way, because an artha, in one perspective, because he has known the ultimate, a bit he will try to run away from the manifest and try to go to the unmanifest. But the jigyasu, knowing everything now, he will not run away from the manifest, running towards the unmanifest. Rather, he will be, in a way, he will be situated in a place whereby he knows the manifest is there, he knows the unmanifest is there, and he can go towards the unmanifest constantly without trying to run away. He's not trying to run away from something, but he's trying to get to what is. Now, artharthi is a place whereby, even more than a jigyasu, now, it's a place where you're not just willing to go towards the ultimate, towards the unmanifest. No, not only that. But then you can give up everything of your whole life to get to the unmanifest, to get to the ultimate. In a way, the Artharthi is so near the Jnani, is so near that person who has reached. Now, the Jnani, on the other side, is a person who has reached the unmanifest. He is there. Now, he doesn't have any desire to go anywhere. Now, this is where all the desires dissolve. This is where all the attachments dissolve. This is when you are there. You are one with the ultimate. There's nothing to reach to. There's nothing to run away from. It's just there. And what is a Jnani? The Jnani is he who can see Krishna as distinct from the manifest and within the manifest as well. That is why, so certainly, a person who has reached with any ritual, like we can see using any ritual, a person reaches to the unmanifest. When he gets to the ultimate, he doesn't leave the ritual. Now, that is something that really used to disturb me, that if he has reached there, why continuously do the ritual that he's doing? Yeah? Why still teach other people how to get there using that which you have reached? Why? It is because he can see the ultimate, even in the ritual now. Because what our distinction is that the ultimate should be distinct from the ritual, like so distinct that when a person reaches, he doesn't need to do the ritual. Now, that's one thing, that he doesn't need to do the ritual. But if he sees the unmanifest in the ritual, then there's also no worry in him doing the ritual or him teaching other people the same ritual by which he reached. So that is a distinction of the Jnani. You never know which perspective he's taking. Yeah? Because normally you would see if a person is doing the ritual, then he has not reached. That's the normal perspective we have. But then the Jnani is some person you can't really conceptualize. You can't say that if he's doing the ritual, he has not reached, or if he's doing the ritual, he has not reached. Like, you can't really just say it. He is a person who is just there, and whatever he does, whether he follows the ritual or he doesn't follow the ritual, he is doing it right. Because even in doing the ritual, he can see what can go wrong. Even in not doing the ritual, he can see what can go wrong. So he's there, Madhyastha. He's the Sthita Prajna, Jnani. And Krishna here is saying that Priyo hi jnani notyartham aham sacha mama priyaha udara sarva evaite jnani twatmeva me matam. I love all of them, that is for sure. But then out of all of them, Priyo hi jnanina atyartham. I love the Jnani utmost. And even for the Jnani, I am his sole love. There's nothing else he loves more than me. Then Krishna is continuing to say that Udara sarva evaite Jnani twatmeva me mata. Not that I only love the Jnani, that is distinct entity and I love, but then that Jnani is my Atma. He's like, even the distinction is now gone. When love is there, you can see that it takes you even further than the distinction. What Krishna is continuing to say is that whatever you place your attention towards is what you become. And Vedaham samatitani vartamanani charjuna bhavishyani cha bhutani mam tu vedana kaschan. I know everything from the beginning to the end. Even what is right now, I know it. But then not everyone knows me. Only some person, only somebody can know me. And however much I am within the manifest, I am also distinct. I am part of the unmanifest. So Krishna is ending with this, that those who know this, te brahma tad vidu kritsnam adhyatmam karma chakhilam sadhi bhutadi devam mam sadhi yagyam cha ye vidu prayana kale pichamam te vidur yukta chetasa. Those who know what the Brahm is, they know everything. After knowing which, there is nothing else remaining to know. And what else does he know apart from Brahma? If he has known Brahma, he knows what Adhyatma is, he knows what Karma is, and he knows Adhibhutam, he knows Adhiyagyam. When he knows that, he also knows that if a person even gets to me when he's on his deathbed, when he's ending his life, his material life, his mortal life, if he can get to know me at that point even, then he never comes back. He gets to the eternal even at that point.
So
Oh.
I
Yeah,
You guess what? Should we kind of just keep going to the next chapter?
sure. So
Us. Hi.
hi.
Did we just finish the chapter?
Yes,
Okay. Can I make a few comments, Yogeshwar?
sure.
Okay. Thank you. All right. So I want to focus on a few topics. One is the idea of Krishna saying, focus all your attention, your whole attention on me. That is very profound. Actually, that is the heart of the power that we have. Attention, concentration is the core idea of the Indian culture. I like the term yogastha. We have looked at sthita prajna. Stha is common in both of them. Stha means you're steady in one place. So yogastha means you're situated in yoga all the time. You're doing the yoga all the time. You're doing the right thing all the time. The Tao is operating within you all the time. Also, another variation of that is be attached to me, saying. So attached to the center. Right? Jnaneshwar has this beautiful description of it. He's saying, look, it's like light. It's like this intense light. And once you are there, you actually don't see anything else. You see everything through it. So on the other point that was really beautifully made by Yogeshwar was this dual way of thinking about it. I'm going to use Louis Sullivan's terms. You separate, you identify function and you identify form. Okay, you see that there is unmanifest and there is and manifest. You say unmanifest, that's what you want to be focused on. But all of manifest is being shaped by unmanifest. So it's like you're standing in the light and you're not moving. Okay, Jnaneshwar is saying, I am there and it is bliss. There is really nothing else. There is no desire, no attachment, no movement from me at all. Anywhere within me, away from it. I am here and I will be here. I want to be here. I am ecstatic. I'm full of consciousness. My attention is completely taken by it. And then he's also saying that because he's there, he's seeing everything else by that light. So it is at once distinct. You can say that this is unmanifest, you see all the manifest as an expression of the unmanifest. You see all the forms as being shaped by the function. So it is being in the unmanifest and saying yes and embracing all of the manifest, including all the gunas, everything. So those are the only points I wanted to make. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Please go on to the next one.
Athashtamo. Now Arjuna is asking that you have talked about these concepts at the end of chapter 7. Brahma, Adhyatma, Karma. What is it? Tell me what it is. Krishna is telling Arjuna, Aksharam Brahma Paramam Swabhavodhyatma Muchyate Bhuta Bhavodbhavakaro Visarga Karma Sangitaha Adhibhutam Ksharo Bhava Purushaschaadhidevatam Adhiyagyohamevatra Dehe Deha Bhritambara. First, Krishna points out that what is Brahma? Brahma is Aksharam Brahma Parama. It is, first of all, it is Aksharam. It is that which never gets destroyed. Another thing, another perspective of it is that it is Paramam. It is one that is the ultimate. And the ultimate is always universal. The ultimate is always there in each and every place. That is when it is the ultimate. There are two ways of looking at Brahma as well. You know, one perspective, which is the perspective of, which is some perspective. Now, these two ways of, by different schools, but then just to put into simple perspective, is that knowing Brahma as so vast, yeah, like it entails all, the whole of the universe. That is Brahman, the universal that is there everywhere. And then also saying that Brahma is the most shukshma. So one part of it is saying that Brahma is vyapta. Yeah? And then another part of it is saying that Brahma is sukshma, meaning that it is the most subtle thing of all. And then how I look at it is Brahma is both. The more subtle you go, the more vyapta you become, the more omnipresent it becomes. Because it is that universal. In a way, it is everywhere. So if you go so subtle into it, you get to see it. But then when you get to see it in that subtleness, you also get to see it everywhere. Swabhava adhyatma muchyate. What is swabhava? Swabhava is the adhyatma. Adhyatma is something that is related to you. What is so specific to you? Adhi atma. Adhi atma iti atmani. So that which is within yourself. And that is your swabhava. So the main question was, what is adhyatma? So having known adhyatma, now adhyatma is swabhava. What is swabhava now? Swabhava is that which is so distinct to you. It is so unique to you. It is a differentiator of you. Like you are unique. Now, in a way, how Indian philosophy works is that, yes, it is distinct. You are distinct in that way. That distinctness doesn't say that now Brahman is not everywhere. No. Brahman has given you that distinctness. Why? Because that distinctness brings it is less a differentiator, rather a more colorfulness to the whole of Brahman in a way. Because if just imagine everybody was the same, even in swabhava, even in temperament, everybody would walk the same way. It wouldn't be a colorful world. The manifest wouldn't be that colorful. So when we're saying Brahma, that is the unmanifest. Now, when it is coming towards the manifest, you get to the colorfulness, to the distinctness of what Brahman can give you. And that is your swabhava. That is that distinctness that Brahman manifests itself in. When you get to that distinctness, know the distinctness in the manifest, and then also know the unmanifest, which is everywhere and joins everything else. Bhuta bhavod karo visarga karma sangita. And then between those two now, between the unmanifest and the manifest, there is that Shakti, there is that power which allows the unmanifest to become the manifest. That is the karma. When we have talked about karma yoga, now what we need to know the distinction here about is that karma yoga is for a person who is right now in the world, in the manifest, to get to the unmanifest. What Krishna is now talking about is that Brahma is the unmanifest. How does the unmanifest interact with the manifest? So we have talked about one direction. What about the other direction? This is the type of karma that Brahman does. Bhuta bhava udbhavakara, meaning Bhuta bhava udbhavakara. Bhuta means prani matra, Bhuta prani matra, meaning all life that exists. And then bhava means existence. So existence of life. Udbhavakara, meaning to make it exist, to produce it. That is what Brahman does. That is his karma. That is the karma of Brahman. The karma of Brahman, in short, is that from the unmanifest to become the manifest. That is his karma. That is the Shakti that is used in between. Out of that now, we have talked about these three perspectives. So we have talked about the unmanifest, which is the Brahman, the manifest, which is now the Swabhava. It brings you individuality now. We have talked about what links both of them from the perspective of Brahman, which is the karma of Brahman. Having this laid out, what is Adhibhutam? What is Adhiyagya? Having laid this out, Adhibhutam is the Kshara Bhava. The manifest has a quality that it gets destroyed moment by moment. Nothing stays. So that is the Adhibhutam. That is the Kshara Bhava of it. Purusha is that even within the manifest, it stays untouched. That is Purusha. Purushas chadi devatam. Arjuna was asking about what Adhideva is. Adhideva is that even within the manifest, it stays untouched by the Kshara Bhava of the manifest. It gets untouched, it remains untouched by the destruction of the manifest. It remains undestructive. So these two distinctions now yet, that even within the manifest, there's this distinction, that which gets destroyed and that which remains. What about Adhiyagya then? Adhiyagyo ahamevatra dehe deha britambara. Out of all that, we have looked at the Purusha, which is undestroyed. But then Adhiyagya is me, myself, within the manifest. And Krishna is putting it uniquely, like aham evatra. It is me. Aham eva is not even like saying aham, but then aham eva means it is only me, no one else. It is only me. And where is that? It is deha vritamvara. It is within that manifest. It is within what you see in the world, and I am there. So even in the manifest now, Krishna has built up three distinctions. One distinction is that which gets destroyed. Another is that which doesn't get destroyed. But that is still just your Atman. Yeah? However, Krishna is saying that there is adhiyagya beyond that. That which entails everything in the manifest. That is me. That is the adhiyagya. And Krishna says that I am the adhiyagya. When you talk about yajna, it means an activity that takes you towards Brahman. Now, this activity that we constantly do in the world, that is towards Brahman, it may be even in the manifest, but then if it's towards the Brahman in the manifest, then we know that we are getting to Brahman. If a person leaves this body while knowing me, smaran muktva kalevar, while knowing me, while constantly experiencing me, experiencing the unmanifest, then he gets to Madbhava. And there is no doubt in that. Krishna explains what Madbhavam means. Madbhavam means Yadaksharam Veda Vido Vadanti, Vishanti Yad Yatayo Vitaraga. It is that which never gets destroyed, and all the scriptures are talking about it. All those who have experienced it are talking about it. And those who know it, those who have gotten detached from the world, they are non-attached to the world now. Well, rather than detached, I would use non-attached, because detachment would feel like you have to get away from the world, from the manifest. Rather, I would say non-attached. They may be there, but then they're non-attached. And those people are vitaraga. They get into me. Even though they're in the manifest, they may be living their life, but then they get to me. Those who really want to get to the Brahman, they do something which is called brahmacharyam. Brahmacharyam charanti. Tatte padam sangrahane pravakshya. I am telling you that padam, that sthanam, that sthiti, that place, that state in which you're supposed to be. I am telling it to you. What is it? Sarvadvarani sanyamya manorudhi nirudhya cha murdhanyadhyayatmanah pranam asthito yoga dharanam. What you're supposed to do is all the doors that go towards the outside, they become closed. They close up. So whether something is outside there or not, your attention is not towards it. So that door is closed. So your ears are going to stay open, obviously. But then your attention is not towards something that is outside there. When your attention is not towards it, then practically that door is closed. Like you cannot hear what is going on in the outside. So in that way, closing all the doors, mano rudhi nirudhyacha, you keep your mind in your heart. You keep your mind in your heart chakra, in your anahat chakra. Having done that, you'll realize that there is something beyond, because this goes in stages. You can't start from Brahman, you have to start from Atma. So you go in stages, you realize that in the Riddhi, in that Anahat Chakra, is the first time you get a glimpse of what is beyond. It may not be the full glimpse, but even the first glimpse of what Brahman is, what Atman is, allows you to give that strength to the Shraddha, that there is something beyond, so I should walk towards it. Before that, there is no Shraddha. Before that, there is no real desire to get towards what Brahman is. What you have to do is now Murdhani Adhaya Atmana Prana. After that, after you've experienced that and you've gotten the Shraddha, then you move towards the Murdha. Move towards the top of your head, slowly by slowly. And take all your prana there. Take all your yoga dharanam there. Take all your attention to that place. Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan ma manusmaran ya prayati tyajandeham sayati paramam gatim. What do you do after you get there to that place? Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan ma manusmaran. You constantly contemplate upon the Om. Now, how we are looking at it is saying Om, but then Krishna has taken you through the road, through the path. He has taken you through the Anahat Chakra, which is the Riddhi Chakra, the Heart Chakra. When you reach the Heart Chakra, what happens is you start getting the first glimpse of what Anahat is. Anahat is the Om. That sound which is never made, because if you want to make a sound, it has to come from two things coming into contact, or two things leaving contact. That is how sound is normally made. And that means ahata. That means ahata, meaning a sound has been made by the joining of two things, sanyoga of two things. Hata, meaning the banging of two things getting together. Anahata means that sound which is made without two things coming into conjunction, or two things leaving conjunction. That sound which is never made. So what Krishna is going towards is that sound that has never been made but is always there. That which is past even the Anahata. Now, since you're on the Murdhani Chakra, the Sahasradhala Chakra, that Anahat is not something that you will make. Mam Anusmaran. You constantly have to be able to pay attention to it now. When you're paying attention to it, whatever state you are in, you've gotten to that state. Sayati Paramam Gati. The Paramam Gati, that is the state he has reached into. Avyaktokshara ityuktas tamahu paramam gatim yam prapya nani vartante tadhama paramam mama. Krishna is continuing on the expansion of what it means. When you get to it, you never have to come back, because that is now the distinction here. When you get to the unmanifest, you never come back to the manifest. But that distinction doesn't constrain the unmanifest from being in the manifest. Rather, it shows you your own way of getting to the unmanifest. Now, there are two perspectives here now. One is how it is, and another is how you're going to reach it. So when you reach it, you'll never fall back into the conceptualizing of Brahman. You're never going to fall back into the karma part. Rather, you're always going to be there. Whichever type of kriya you do, whichever type of karma you do, you'll never be stained by it. So Krishna is now talking about what is vyakta. there is this part of Vyakta, which is called the Prakriti, which is there. Krishna is saying, Parastasmad tu bhavonyo, Vyakto Vyaktat Sanatana. There is something that is beyond that, which is Avyakta. And then Krishna continues that Avyaktat Sanatana. There is also that which is beyond the Avyakta. So Krishna is making the same distinction, but saying it in some other way, so that some other way that we can understand is that there is the Adhibhutam, the Purusha, and the Adhiyagya. So there's a distinction between that which gets destroyed, that which is distinct. It is Akshara, but it's still, there's a distinction in there. And then there's the Adhiyagya. Krishna is saying the same concept here, is that there is that which will get destroyed. There is that which is the Avyakta. Yes, it's there in the middle. But then there's that which is even beyond the Avyakta. That which is beyond that individuality. It goes towards the Brahma Sanatana. And then there are two ways that people go having left this body. And how I normally make this distinction is that having left this body, what is death? Death is that whereby we leave the identity with this body. That is the time of death. That's when we feel that I'm going to die, when I'm leaving the identity with this body. And that which is death, if it is leaving the identity with the body, then even when you become Brahman, you've left your identity with the body. And your identity is something distinct. In a way, even though you are living, you have died. This is where the concept of Dvija comes in. You're born the second time. Means you have to die the first time, then you are born the second time. And that is what Dvija is. Dvija is somebody who has died for the first time. His whole, what his identity with the body has died. Now he has gotten to another level of being. He's born the second time. He's born into Brahman now. So there are two ways of living the body. One is living the body just as we know it. And another is living the body to get to Brahman. So the two ways are said by Krishna. Agnir Jyotiraha Shukla Shanmasa Uttarayanam Tatra Prayata Gachanti Brahma Brahma Vidojanaha. Those who know Brahma go using this rod, which is towards the sun. That's why Krishna is saying Agnir Jyoti. So Krishna is going to point towards that which points towards the sun. First is the Agni. Agni meaning the fire, that which is always there. Aha meaning the day. So where you see the sun, that time of the day when you see the sun. And then Krishna continues to say that, what about the other road? Dhumo ratris tatha Krishna shanmasa dakshinayanam tatra chandramasam jyotir yogi prapya nivartate. A person who goes through this road, this other road, dhuma. Dhuma meaning the smoke that you get from the fire. Now you see, it's also interesting how smoke comes from the fire. In a way, it is distinct from the fire, but it is evolving from the fire as well. But if you get stuck to the manifest, that is what Krishna is saying, running away from the fire. It has evolved from the sun that is in the middle, which is the peripheral. But it is distinct, it is there. When you're running towards it, you're going towards the dhuma, running towards the smoke. You're running towards the ratri. that darkness which is further away from the sun. And it is Krishna, Krishna meaning it's black in complexion. Rather, the light itself is Tejayaman, is that which is Prakashman, that which is enlightened itself. When you're talking about Krishna, that is going away from that sun. When a person goes using that road, that path, he's going using the Chandramasam, and he will get somewhere. He may be running towards some light somewhere, but he will have to come back. He will never reach the ultimate. Vedeshu yagyeshu tapassu chaiva dhaneshu yat punya phalam pradishtam atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthanam upaiti chadyam. That which has been said in the Vedas, that which is done by the yajnas, that which is done within the tapas, that even which is done by a person who is giving the dana, anything that is said about all those, any good deed that is attached to all those, atyeti tat sarvamidam viditva. A person who knows this goes beyond all that, goes beyond the good that is said in the Vedas, goes beyond the good that is said in the yajnas, the tapas and the dana. When he goes beyond that, which is said in all those activities and knowledge, when you're going beyond all that, yogi param sthanu chadya, he goes to that ultimate param sthana, adyam, and Krishna says that which has always been there. When he goes to that sthana, he will realize that this has always been there with me. You'll realize that even before I got to this, it was there with me. It's just that I didn't open my eyes towards it. I didn't pay attention to it.
Thank you, Yogeshwar. I just have a few points. I like how the chapter starts and your observation that Brahma is Vyapta and Sukshma at the same time. Vyapta means vast, encompassing everything. Sukshma is very tiny, very small, very, it is almost imperceptible. So how can it be that Brahma is Vyapta and Sukshma at the same time? This is another version of saying it is manifest. So everything that is manifest, all of existence that you see, that is Brahma. And the principle that is driving everything, which is the unmanifest, that is Brahma as well. So it is two perspectives on the same thing. So it is everywhere and it is at the center. So you can look at it as center and the periphery. So the center at its limit is very small. It is Sukshma. It is imperceptible, but that is the seed from which everything is coming, and everything is that. So that's I think that was beautiful. I also thought the idea of, Krishna saying that the karma of Brahma is creation of life, creation of all the forms. So the function of function is to create forms. I like the idea of adhyagna, where it is, and the idea of dvija, where you have to give up the periphery in order to move towards the center. So there is a movement. So there is a movement from Brahma outward. You can look at it as grace that is coming. And then there is a deliberate movement that you have towards the center by giving up things, giving up your attachment to things so that you are attached only to the center. So this is a profound chapter. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Can you please go to the next one?
Athanavamodhyayah. So Krishna has now talked about the question about what Arjuna asked. So Krishna is now reverting back to that which is jnanam vijnana sahitam. If you know that which is there as the unmanifest and experience it, then you've gotten to that which is beyond, that which is even beyond perception. You can't contemplate upon it right now. Krishna is saying that is Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. Having known that, it is the best thing you can know. Raja means the best and the ultimate. It is that type of knowledge that is the ultimate. And it is also, however ultimate it is also so secretive. Rajaguhyam. It is not that which we can have, we can just see everywhere. It's not that. It's not that we can experience everywhere. Rather, we can experience it when we get that type of attention. Now, Krishna here is saying that Maya tatamidam sarvam jagada vyakta murtina matsthani sarva bhutani na chaham teshva avastita न च मत्स्थानि भूतानि पश्य मे योगमेश्वरम भूत भृन्न च भूतस्थो ममात्मा भूत भावना. These are the two main verses here in this chapter. I am within all the manifest. Yes. However, I am also the unmanifest as well at the same time. Another thing is that I am in the manifest itself. So, matsthani sarva bhutani. Another thing is also that everything is within the unmanifest. Even the manifest is within the unmanifest. However, the unmanifest is not in the manifest. Then Krishna also continues to say that Nachamatstani bhutani, even that which I said before, that all the manifest is within the unmanifest, it is not also true in one perspective. However, mamatma bhuta bhavana, I am the Atma of everything. I am that from which everything evolves. So let's talk about these concepts because they are deep. Krishna is talking about things, and in the next verse, he says that I am the opposite of what I've talked about in the first verse. So in that complexion, let's say, first thing, Maya tatam idam sarvam. Take the manifest, and the function is all there in the form. And how I am staying there is avyakta murtina. I am staying there. You may not see the function in the form as well. That's how I'm staying there. You may not realize it. Then Krishna is saying that being true, matsthani sarva bhutani, all the form is there in the function. Like if you have the function only remaining, all the form can evolve from it. So all the form is there in the function. However, there are times and places whereby the form cannot hold all the function. Now Krishna is continuing that yes, we can understand that some forms cannot hold all the function. It's fine. But the function holds all the forms. However, nacha matsthani bhutani. Also, all the forms are not also within the function. Also know that. There's also something so distinct about the function that the forms cannot really say it out. So, nacha matsthani bhutani. Not all the forms also take the perspective of the function. That is the yoga Meshwaram that Krishna is talking about. Pashyame yoga Meshwaram. He's telling Arjuna, look at my Aishwarya, look at my greatness, how the unmanifest can be. And if we look at it like from a logical perspective, if it is one, it cannot be the other. But if we look at it from a lively perspective, a truthful perspective, can it be? Then we can see yes. The function can be in such a way, the unmanifest can be in such a way that it is both there in the form, and it is also distinct from the form. The form can show the function as well, and there are also places and times where the form does not show the function at all. You may have the form and forget the function totally. Krishna is saying that Prakritim swamavashtabhya visrijami puna puna. There is a time when all the forms come out of the function, and there is a time when all the forms get back into the function. That continuously happens. And those who do not know me, they are mudha. Param bhavam jananto mama bhuta maheshwar. I have been in this manifest form. Krishna is saying that avajananti mam mudha manushim tanumashritam. I am in this manifest form in front of you. However, those who really cannot see the universal perspective, the ultimate perspective, the unmanifest, they cannot see the unmanifest in the manifest, which is this in front of you, this body in front of you, which is Krishna. Then they do not really know me. Those who are Mahatmana, those who really know, first of all, Devim Prakritim Ashrita, they are continuously having themselves within the Devi Prakriti. And since they're in the Devi Prakriti, which we shall see in chapter 16, since they're continuously in Devi Prakriti, they continuously contemplate upon me. They continuously pay attention to me, the unmanifest. How do they do that? Krishna is now elaborating that. There are different ways. Satatam kirtayantoma. They are continuously talking about the unmanifest. Yatantascha dridhavata. Others, they do not talk so much about the unmanifest. Rather, they do some activity to get towards the unmanifest. Others, they revere to me with so much bhakti, with so much love, so much devotion. And those people, nitya yukta upasate. They, all those types of people, nitya yukta, they always pay attention to me continuously. Upasate, upa asate. Asa dhatu means to sit near, to sit. And upa means near, to sit so near me, to become that sthita prajna, to sit so near me that you become one with me. Others do it with jnana yajna. Yeah? And that is also a type of yajna. Others do it as ekatvena. Others do it as prithaktvena. Bahudha vishvato mukha. Others do it with me as the manifest. So these are all different perspectives. Like what Krishna here is doing in the Gita, so far, as in, if we talk about the time in which Krishna is talking, we realize that all these different ways were there at that point in time. Krishna is saying there are so many people who get to the unmanifest. That is fine. And I can also see it, that there are so many ways of getting towards it. It may be ekatvena, that you're really one with me, you really become one with me. Others see it as prithaktvena, that I am different and they're different, so they have to get one with me. There is that path that they build in the middle. That's also fine. And also, there are also those who see me within the manifest directly, Vishwato Mukham, that which is the unmanifest within the manifest, they can look at it directly, eye to eye. And they can say that we have known the unmanifest. Then there are also those who can see that I am the yajna. Yeah? Aham kraturaham yajna. And even that which is used for the yajna, swadha, is me. And even like the ghee that is used is me. Even that which the fire burns upon, which is the wood, is me. The mantras that are used are me. And even the who is being worshipped by this whole activity is me. Aham eva ajyam. I am the one who is being praised, who is being worshipped by this activity. And I am the hutam. I am the agni, I am the hutam. I am everything within the yajna. There's nothing that is distinct from me within that yajna. And sometimes it is not also a derivative to say that yajna was something that Indian tradition really specialized in. And they specialized in it so much that that is one place that if you tell somebody that look at the Brahman in this, and they could see it. And when Krishna is saying this, that I am the yajna, I am the fire, I am that ghee that you put in, it is not in the perspective that even in India it is looked at right now, that it is an activity. And doing that activity, like not even thinking about anything else, we can get to Brahman. No, Krishna is saying that in this activity, here and right now, you see Brahman. That is how specialized the people who were doing yajna at that time were. They could say the mantra, they could give the ahuti, and they could be in this state whereby when you tell a person, look at this person, they will realize the Brahman within that person directly. So what they will see is not just the activity, they will see the Brahman embedded into the activity. Because there are so many ways of looking at Brahman, because there's so many ways of getting to Brahman. One is through karma. And if we just say normal karma, sometimes we may deviate from the right path. Yeah, we may say all the karma is going to Brahman, but this was a unique way, getting specialized in it, and then showing others that look at this speciality and look at the Brahman within this. Now everyone can see the Brahman within that yajna, within that particular type of yajna. And then you realize that, yes, this is what they're talking about. This is the Brahman in the karma, not just the karma that I would be doing otherwise. Who am I? I am Vedyam Pavitram Omkara Riksama Yajurevacha. I am all the Vedas, yes, But I am also that one Omkara, which is Pavitra, which is Vedyam, meaning that which is supposed to be known. And that is the only thing that has the yogyata, has the patrata of being known. Once you know that, everything else gets into place. Those who constantly contemplate upon me, they get to me. Tesham nityabhiyuktanam yoga kshemam vahamyaham. If they constantly contemplate upon me, then I also think about them. I also pay attention to them. And it's also a normal thing for nature to do. For example, if we're always thinking about nature, nature will also think about us. But this is even far beyond nature. But just to give an example, that if we just think about nature, nature also thinks about us. It also takes care of us. So in the same way, if you're talking about universal Brahman, then if we are constantly paying attention to Brahman, then you'll also see all those ways in which Brahman is paying attention to you. It is a two-way thing. And Krishna is saying that however you can get to me, Patram Pushpam Phalam Toyam Yome Bhaktya Prayachati Tadaham Bhaktyo Paritam Ashnami Prayatatmana. I will accept anything that a person gives me, on the path. May it be patram, may it be just a leaf, may it be just a flower, may it be just water even. I will accept all that. It's fine. But it should be with bhakti. It should be with the ultimate love towards Brahman. When that is fulfilled, everything is accepted. Everyone can get to me. However many bad deeds he may have done, apichet suduracharo bhajate mam ananya bhak. Sadhureva samantavya samyak vyavasthito hiya. If a person, however many bad deeds he may have done, if he constantly contemplates upon me, constantly pays attention to me, the unmanifest, which is the center, then I see him as a sadhu. Sadhureva samantavya. I see him as a sadhu. I see him as a person who will get to me. Samyak vyavasthito hisa. If he is samyak vyavasthita, yeah? if he can really contemplate upon Brahman, then whatever past deeds, it doesn't matter. He can get to me. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktaiva atmanam atmana matparayanaha. So there are two things here. Manmana bhava madbhakto madhyaji mam namaskuru. Constantly pay attention to me. Using that, you become my bhakta. Yeah? Then madhyaji mam namaskuru. Constantly do any actions towards me. Using that, you'll be able to know that I am he who has to be reverted to, the only ultimate principle. Mame vaishyas yukteva. If you're constantly paying attention to me in this way, because sometimes you also need karma to pay attention to me. Sometimes you also need jnanam to pay attention to me. Using the bhakti to pay attention to me, using all that. Atmanam matparayanam. Now, if you've used all your faculties that are at your disposal and you've put all of them into me, I say that person is matparayana. So the two perspectives are, one perspective, the person is doing it, doing all that he can do to keep in Brahman. and another is Brahman accepting that person, that yes, he is my Matparayana. He is within me now. And when that happens, is when Krishna is saying that you get to the Rajavidya, Rajaguhyam. You get to the ultimate knowledge. You get to that knowledge which is so secretive.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. I will make 3 points. First point was about the function and form. The initial verses that you talked about. So the way I understand it is the function has created all the forms. So all the forms that you see are created by the function. But function is much greater than the forms that you see, because the potential, the fecundity, the ability of the function, the Brahma, to produce things is much larger. You see it in chapter 11 or chapter 10, when he says, these are my manifestations, but these are only part of my manifestations. I have, the Brahma has capacity of much greater manifestations. There is the possibilities of the function of producing forms is much, much greater than the forms that we see. The forms, the function, so in that sense, the function is there in all the forms that you see, but function is much more than that. So that was first point. Second, I really love this, Yajna, that the fire is Brahma, what you're putting in the fire is Brahma, and to whom you're giving it is Brahma. It is the seen, seer, and sight, or the food, the act of eating, and what you're putting it in. So it's like, it's just all of it is Brahma. So I really love that. And the last point I would make is the point about the two-way love. There is grace, and then when you ask to be a child of God, you are one. So it is, you have the loop. You're getting things from Brahma. Brahma is raining grace on you. And when you choose to turn your attention in the fullest way, everything that you're capable of, your devotion, your understanding, and your action on Brahma, then Krishna is saying that such a person is my loved person, that he is mine. So that loop coming from Brahma to you and from you to Brahma is very profound. Thank you, Yogeshwar. Yogeshwar, do you think you have time to do the 10th one? Okay.
Yeah, we can do the 10th.
Go ahead.
So Krishna is now saying that I am again telling you what I am. I am the Adi of all the Devas and all the Maharshi, all those who have reached. The unmanifest was there even before any living being from the manifest got to the unmanifest. The unmanifest was there. So it has been there from the beginning. And I am Loka Maheshwaram. I am the ultimate. Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate iti matva bhajante mam buddha bhava samanvitaha. If you get to know this, that I am that which from I am that from which everything evolves. That is one perspective. Yes? But even after evolving, its own life is me, myself. Its living is myself now. So we can talk about like the form and the function, yes. So the form comes from the function, that's fine. But even when the form has come from the function, the form has the function within itself, and it is what gives the form life. It is not the form itself, but it's the function that gives the form its life. It is the function that gives the form its usefulness itself. If we talk about material things, even like a spoon, a fork, it is the function that gives its life. If the function is removed, then even the form doesn't have its life, doesn't have its usefulness. A person who has given all his faculties to me, Madchitta, Madgata Prana, Bodhayanta Parasparam, Kathayantascha Mam Nityam, Tushyanti Cha Smaranti Cha. Person who has given all his faculties to me. What happens is they constantly remember me, and remembrance is of your own nature, who you truly are. So when you get to who you truly are, Tushyanti, Ramanti Cha. First of all, there is that type of santosha that comes to you. Tusha dhatu is the same way you get santosha. So there is that bliss that comes to you. You do not have an urge to go anywhere else now. However, there's also that perspective about Ramanti. It's not that now you'll become passive now. No, no, no. After having that bliss, you will become the most active. You'll start become Ramanticha. And you'll always be active within Brahman now. So this is the place whereby you're doing all the karma without any attachment now. So you are without any urges, any attachments, any desires, but yet you can do the best type of action. Arjuna is now saying, yes, I have known you. You are Param Brahma. You are Param Dhama. You are Param Pavitra. Yeah? You are the purest of all that I can see. And even not that I am only saying, but even others who were there before. Devarshi Narada has said this. Asita Maharshi has said this. Devala Maharshi has said this. Vyasa has said this. And not only that, even you yourself are saying this, that you are the ultimate. Swayam Chaiva Bravishime. You are telling me that you are the ultimate. I have known that through what you have told me. Still, there is this that I have not yet known. So this is the courage you need, whereby even though somebody has told you everything, you can distinguish, I have known this part, but there's still something that I am missing. Vaktumarhasya sheshena divyahyatma vibhutayah yabhir lokan imanstvam vyapyatisthasi. I want to know that vibhuti through which you are within this whole manifest, through which the unmanifest is within the manifest. Which is that vibhuti? What is it? How can I know it? How can I know you within the manifest? Because that's the first step I can take towards you. So Krishna is saying that, oh wow, Hanta, it is a pleasure. It is so good that you have asked this. Now I am going to tell you about my Divya Vibhuti. I am going to tell you Pradhanyata. I'm going to tell you the main points about it. And there is no end to it. That's why I can only tell you the main points about it. So Krishna here is talking about what life is, where life is more profound than any other. One is saying that I am the fire. Yeah? Adityanam aham Vishnu, Jyotisham Raviranshumai. Out of all the Jyoti, I am that sun that is always shining. Now, for us, because we have to see it in the manifest, we have to see the unmanifest in the manifest. So we have to see that which stays untouched through our lifetime. So one thing is the sun, and we can see that it is untouched throughout our lifetime. Nothing can touch it. The clouds may sometimes keep the sun rays away from the earth, but that is also a portion only, and that is only for some time. But the sun itself, so this is the perspective from the earth, but the sun itself is unstained. There's nothing that can touch the sun. In that way, Jyotisham Raviranshumai, first of all, it is untouched. Another, that it is the most lively. It is not that it is getting its own light from somewhere else. No, it doesn't need to borrow anything. It is itself full of light. In a way, the same thing is happening to us. Ourselves, we are full of light. We are in the enlightened state ourselves. It's just that there's some clouds that are there that are not allowing us to realize that. So there may be a space or a time whereby we do not realize it, that we are the sun, but we are truly the sun. And then out of all the air, I am that oxygen that has the life, that gives you the life. So out of all the types of air, we know that oxygen is something unique that gives us the life. We cannot stay a second without oxygen. Maybe we can stay without water for 5 days. We may be able to stay without food for 2 weeks. But without air, not more than 5 minutes. Yeah? So that's something that is so essential to our life. Where can you get more life than oxygen itself? It is the most liveliest thing on earth. It is the most living thing on earth. So even more than living things themselves, oxygen is more lively. Krishna is saying, see me there. Yajnanam japa yajnasmi. I am the japa yajna out of all the yajnas. One unique thing about the tradition of India is that it is mostly focused on words, on the shabda, rather than on the sight. It's more focused on the word rather than on the sight. So out of all the types of yajna, I am the japa yajna. So it's focusing on the shabda that also Arjuna can easily get to. That is where you can see me more prominently. And then there is also something that is also distinct, whereby in the Indian tradition, you will do all that you can do with the word. There's so many mantras that you can do. But when you know it, they will say darshana, that I have seen it. However, what will happen is that when you want to get with the Western tradition, when you want to get towards it, you'll use all the sight, you'll use all the other faculties. But when they get to it, they will say, I have heard the word. Like the word is everything. I have heard it. So these two distinctions that are parallel. When you do one, you get to the other. That is the most like lively thing that you can see. That it's not that when you do one, you get stuck into it. No, when you do one, you get to the ultimate of the other. And I am out of all all the Daityas, I am Prahlada. And we have already gone through the story of Prahlada, like being a Daitya, being born in a Daitya Kur. There is nothing that is stopping you from becoming the ultimate with Brahman. As Krishna has already pointed out in previous chapters, that even he who has done so many bad deeds in his whole life can get to me. And when he gets to me, sadhu reva samantal, take him as a sadhu, take him as really one with me. So even Prahlada, now Prahlada himself is born into a Daitya Kur, a Daitya family. His father is the greatest enemy of Vishnu, of the ultimate at that point in time. However, his own son is the greatest devotee of Vishnu. And what Prahlad can do is tell others about it. That's also fine. Do it in himself. Japa yajna is what he used. He was always constantly contemplating upon Sriman Narayan. Japa yajna was what he was doing. And that's also fine. But then, having so much devotion towards the unmanifest, that the unmanifest has to become manifest. Narsimha avatar has to come as manifest in front of Prahlada because of his devotion. That is the greatest thing about Prahlada. And even out of all the types of Vidya, I am Adhyatma Vidya. After knowing which, that one, you get to know all. And out of all the types of conversations, I am Vada. So when Krishna says that I am Vada, Vada means a type of, Vada means a type of conversation whereby you constantly want to get to the truth. You do not want to say that I am right or somebody else is right, but I always want to make a conversation whereby we can both get to the truth. What is the truth is the main objective. Nor is it that I am right, or is it that another person is wrong. No, none of them. But to get to the truth is what Vada is. And then Aksharanam Akarosmi. Out of all the types of letters, syllables, I am Akara. Now, that's distinct about Akara in Sanskrit itself, whereby Akara is something that is staying within each and every syllable. To pronounce any syllable, ka, ka, ga, ga, you have to say Akara. It is the same with the unmanifest. Like when you're pointing towards the unmanifest, you have to use the manifest. So you're using the ka, ka, ga, ga. In a way, you're pointing to the manifest. But without the unmanifest, it can never be pointed towards. Yeah? So there's a perspective of both within them. What you're pointing towards and what you have to use to point towards it as well. So the unmanifest is there within the manifest. That is what Akara means. And even it is also the first letter in the Maheshwarani Sutrani, like where all the syllables are listed, which are used in Sanskrit. All the letters are listed in there. And when we look at it from that perspective, you realize that how essential the first vowel can be, which is Akar, whereby nothing else can go without it. Everything has to be with it. And I am also Kala. I am the time. And Kala has two distinct meanings in Indian philosophy. And first, seeing the distinction. Kala means time. Kala also means death. So first of them having them distinct and then joining them, because the only perspective of time we have is death. It's because of death that we keep a track of time constantly. It is because of death that we have a value of time. Because if there was no death, if there was no end of life, there would be, you will not attach so much value to the life. Krishna is then continuing to say that Vrishninam Vasudevosmi Pandavanam Dhananjaya. This is almost the last parts where Krishna is ending, that out of all the Vrishnis, I am Vasudeva in front of you. Then, out of all the Pandavas, don't forget this, you are the unmanifest. You are the Brahman. Out of all the secrets, I am Mauna. And I am the Jnana of all those who know. I am that essence of Jnana, of all those who know. So Krishna has ended all those manifest, where you can see the unmanifest. And he's saying that Yacchapi sarva bhutanam bijam tadaham arjuna na tadasti vina yatsyam maya bhutam characharam. I am that which is within everything. That's one perspective. Another perspective is I am the seed of all that which is. Bijam tadaham arjuna. So look for the seed of everything. Is one thing you should do. And another thing you should do is also that without which the manifest could not evolve, could not be itself. I am that. Natadasti vina yatsyan. I am that. And there is no start and there is no end of my vibhutis. Athava bahunetena kim jnatena tavarjuna vishtabhyaham idam kritsnam ekankshena stito jagat. How much can I tell you about my Aishwarya, my vibhuti? And how much can one person know about me? I am within each and every part of this manifest. That is how you should know me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Yogeshwar. We'll see you tomorrow. Let me go ahead and give my comments on it, and then we're going to go ahead and open it up for your comments and questions. The following things stand out for me. One is the point that Yogeshwar is making, that not only function creates the form, but function continues to be the life of the form. So function remains in the form, and it's the function in forms which keep the forms alive. So the Atma in you, the soul in you, is your function, and it's the same as Brahma. That's one point. The second point, I was really fascinated with the role of words and role of sound in the Indian culture as being the primary means of making progress. And then when you have reached the end state, you say, I have seen. It is different in the West. So that's really, really fascinating point. The point about Prahlad that Yogeshwar talked about, Prahlad was a son of the greatest enemy of Vishnu. But Prahlad was a devotee of Vishnu, and he relentlessly was focused on Vishnu, up to a point where Vishnu had to say, okay, I have to manifest myself on earth because of Prahlad. So it is that Vishnu had to manifest himself given the devotion of Prahlad. So there is a two-way relation. It's an extreme example of the two-way relationship between the Brahma and us. I really like the point about the point Yogeshwar made about go, that the sound is Brahma. That's what Krishna says. So what the thing that Yogeshwar was pointing out is that whenever you use a consonant, like ka, you say ka, is there in that. So it's a very beautiful way of saying it, that any manifestation will have the function within it, the unmanifested within it, just like every consonant, in order to be pronounced, has to have the vowel with it. So that's what I got. So now what I want to do is I want to open it up for any comments, any questions. I'm happy. I mean, what we're trying to do here is we want to complete the Bhagavad Gita. Yogeshwar needs to, has only 2 more to go. So that's why we are doing it this way, because what he's producing in his summaries of these chapters is just incredible. And I want to make sure that we cover all of it at all of the chapters with as much detail. I want to give him as much time as he needs to do that. I think that's why I'm putting questions to him as a second priority. But you're welcome to, make comments, pose questions. This is just the beginning. We are just finishing up with Gita, but we're going to continue exploring it. So would love to hear what your thoughts were on these chapters 7 through 10. In addition to, if you have any general comments or questions or thoughts about Gita, feel free to type exclamation mark. Would love to hear from all of you. We'll start with Evanik.
Yes, so I think a couple of things stood out. One was the focus on attachments in chapter 7. And the reason why it stood out for me is because, once you get rid of all of the attachments, that's when you get to the to oh gosh, to the unmanifest. And I think, I'm still trying to work that out in my head, I guess, because I haven't gotten rid of all of the attachments, obviously. But it's just one of those things where I get it on a head level, on a cerebral level, and I'm getting it as I'm releasing attachments, but it's still that concept of I can get to the unmanifest, because before I didn't really think it was achievable, and now I do. And I think another thing is when he talks about happiness. I know sometimes we refer to happiness in the West as like, everything's perfect, you're happy all the time. If you just do things, no matter what happens, you'll be happy. Right. And that's not what the Gita is saying at all. Is the Gita is when we're happy is when we're paying attention to a particular thing, when we are very focused. And in the West, that's a hard concept because I mean, everybody has 50 million things going on. And it's like, if you focus on the one thing, the happiness will come, the bliss will come. And I know people that are connected spiritually, like to God, and it seems like for them, nothing really shakes them. You're one of those people, Sharika. Like, I think that, nothing really shakes you. So I see it, and I see that there is a chance for it. And I feel like it really connected when Yogeshwar was saying, I feel like Yogeshwar was definitely one too, that when you connect to one thing, when you focus on one thing, that's what it is. Because I know for me, like, I can go through 50 million different things and I have to stop myself and I have to focus. And when I focus, I get more done. When I focus, I achieve without being attached to that fruit. I achieve what I want. So it's definitely like those were the two things that stood out for me.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Ebony. So I will comment on things as people make observations. It's very interesting to look at the West and the East. Western India, in this case, because China is completely different on this issue, on many issues. So it's not really Western East, it's Western China or Western India. There are three different, three different civilizations. So the conception of happiness that is being talked about here is very different from the Western concept. I would not even say Western concept, I would say the modern concept of happiness. The modern concept of happiness is focused on achieving specific things that you want. That is considered happiness. So they are all things in the periphery, and all things you say, okay, I have it or I don't have it, and oh, I lost it or I have it. So it is all about attachment to peripheral things. This is the happiness that is being talked about here in chapter 9, for example, or in chapter 6, is that of concentration. So it's concentration on one thing, but it's a particular one thing. It's not just any one thing. It is concentration on the Brahma. It is concentration on Brahma, so it's the center. It is concentration on the center. But connect it up with what is being said here, that Brahma is everything. So it's Vyapta, so it is vast. It means everything. And it means the center, Sukshma, the point. So you're really focused on the center. And in so doing, you're seeing all manifestations that are going on around you as a manifestation of that. So what that does is that your perspective of looking at anything changes. Anything in the periphery changes because you see that as being driven by from the center and it coming back to the center. So it's the loop between those things. So whenever you're thinking, whenever you're acting in anything in the manifest, you're always coming back. You're always coming back to the center, and that is what gives the stability. It's, Naneshwar puts it very beautifully. You're standing in the light, and it's not like you're saying, oh, I wish I could do this, but I want to be here. I have to make myself. It's like you love light and you are in light. You're just bathed in life. You're just standing there. Okay. You look anywhere, it is less lighted than where you are. And that light that is within you now, you are in light and you are the sun. That is lighting everything. So, and that there is this tremendous bliss in that. So you are now engaging with everything. You are interacting with everything, but you are interacting it from the center. So it's a very, very different conception. So I would not even use the concept of happiness. It's much better to see it like center and periphery, where you're attached to when you're attached to something in the periphery, by its nature, the way in which attachment works to the periphery is that it will be like hunger. You feel hungry, you feel bad, then when you eat, you are satiated. It kind of goes down and then it comes to that level, and then you will get hungry again. And or you like something and then it's going to deteriorate by its nature. So anything that is there in the manifest is going to have these cycles. And if your emotion is tied to it being a particular thing, that's going to keep changing, and you're going to keep having all of these emotions. Whereas when you see the same thing, when you're doing the same thing from the perspective of the center, you see the constancy. You see that it is all being driven by the center, and you don't get affected by it as much. So it gives you a perspective on everything that you're doing. Is that useful? Okay. Next up is Joe. Would love to hear from everybody. So go ahead and type a exclamation mark with whatever comments or questions you have. Joe.
So this was a lot. I mean, you know, covering so many chapters in one sitting. So I'm just trying to gather my thoughts. So the first part, the idea of understanding the center, it starts to, you start to understand the essence of God, essentially. And I kind of see it for at least chapters 8, 9, 10, or no, 7, 8, and 9, a theme of bhakti yoga, you know, this devotion that one needs in order to see things clearly and to have this focus on the center. Because if you're not focused, if you're only getting part of the picture of what you of your center, that you don't understand Krishna, you don't understand the vastness of Krishna. So you might start to focus on things like what Krishna can do versus understanding what Krishna is, like the power of Krishna.
Sure. Joe, is it okay if I
Please interrupt. Please interrupt.
You keep on adding your points, but let me comment on the points because it's such a vast field that it's not better to do it one by one. So what I would say is that the core thing Krishna is saying is be focused on me, pay attention to me. Now that actually works in all three yogas. It is bhakti yoga. In bhakti yoga, you have devotion, and that's how you're focused. In jnana yoga, you're saying that is what I want to understand Krishna. I want to understand the center. I want to understand the core of me. And I am paying attention to try to understand it. In karma yoga, you're saying all my actions have to be directed towards Brahma. Any action that I'm doing, my attention is always focused on Brahma while doing that action. So what it is saying about attention actually applies across the board to all yogas. And what he's saying is that do that, focus on me with whatever you have, with everything you got. That's it. Go ahead.
Yeah, and this is where I also think that, again, it's coming back to focus, the ability to focus, is to basically not be distracted by the forms. That's one way of looking at it. Is that?
I mean, that's a valid way of looking at it, but the way in which, like the Indian tradition is, right, is that, like when you look at, for example, Jnaneshwar talking about this, it's like he's saying, look, what are you talking about distraction? I am in light. Everything else I look at is like a pale version. How can I get distracted? There is like, I can barely see it. And whenever I see it, I see the light from me, from where I am standing, lighting it up. So and when I look at it, I see the light from the center that is bouncing off things and seeing how that is being driven from the center. So whenever I focus on anything, I am focused only on the Brahma. So you see the perspective change. Like when you say that you are on the periphery, then all around you, there are things that are going to be in directions other than Brahma. There is one direction that is towards Brahma, but there are other directions. Whereas when you are standing at the center, all directions are going to lead you back to the center.
All right. So that makes sense to me. Now, moving on to chapter 8, that actually was a little bit difficult for is understanding this relationship between the self and God, essentially, right? And I understand that moving beyond, like, essentially your body, the senses, the mind, moving beyond that, I am a little bit lost on understanding the cycle of rebirth fully, where there's destroyed, there's that's which is not destroyed, and then there's the yugna, which I didn't quite understand, is that which moves you towards Brahma. So how does that cycle, I'm having a little bit of difficulty understanding the cycle of rebirth and how that's one of my questions, really.
Okay, great question. Okay, I'll see, I'm going to answer these questions as best as I can. Okay. The point here is, so firstly, the way I see it always is that I see this whenever Gita talks about rebirth, I look at it from multiple perspectives. I look at it as what happens, these cycles within you that are taking place. I look at it as the psychological reality. There is a psychological reality to it. And then there is even a physical reality to it. Because what happens is that everything keeps changing. Okay, so when you stop paying attention to something, it dies. Or like the example that Yogeshwar gave. So I want to first establish that as a different context from like across lives. Okay, I don't understand the across life point. So I'm going to look at it from the physical perspective, and then the maybe even mental perspective and emotional perspective. Okay, how this point apply to that. So look at it from the perspective of form follows function, right? The form is created by the function. The form is temporary. It keeps changing. As soon as something is created, it starts to deteriorate. It is temporary. But the function, the action of creating it, that is the thing that will remain even after the form is gone. So the form, so in this sense, form is the thing that is going to be destroyed. Function is the thing that is going to remain. So that was now the third one is, what is yajna? Yajna is actually the commitment of form to function, of saying we are forms. We are function and we are forms. You have all kinds of forms. You have habits, for example. Okay, habits are forms. What it is saying is, doing yajna is your commitment to saying you will give up whatever forms you have, you will let them die in order to pursue the function. That's what it is saying. That is yajna. Yeah, that is sacrifice. It's the same concept as is there in Gospel of John. You have to let things which are moving you away from the center die. You have to give that up in order to move towards the center. You cannot move to the center. So that action of the form of giving up things that are not according to function is called yajna, or sacrifice.
That is very helpful for me. So one other comment,
Mhm.
and I might, if it's okay.
Okay.
I don't
Folks,
know
go
if-
ahead and keep putting exclamation mark if you have any questions. And Joe, please keep asking any questions that you have. Go ahead.
Oh, good. Well, I mean, the one comment that I really wanted to make
And
is that
let me just interrupt one thing. If anybody else has questions, we will go to them first, and then Joe can continue.
yeah, please, yeah.
Okay, go ahead, Joe.
Yeah, if anybody has anything. So this idea of, we were coming to explaining how the form and functions works with both the manifest and unmanifest. So how the functions are the unmanifest. It's the vastness, and that exists without the forms, but the forms can't exist with without the opposite.
Right. It's basically, think of it as, universal laws of
Right.
exist. They just are, and there are manifestations of it. But the universal laws of physics are much greater than the manifestations that we have.
And so then I kind of related that back to the two-way love concept.
Mhm.
Right. So there's a relationship there, if I'm understanding it correctly. It's not only the human love, but it's also the love for the divine. Or is that or
No,
maybe am I saying it
Can you
wrong?
explicate? Can you explicate it?
So it's kind of a
Let's do one thing.
Yeah,
We'll come back to
Brian.
it, but please
Yeah.
bring this up. Okay, please bring this up.
Okay.
Brian, go ahead. Brian and Penny.
Okay, I just want to share some thoughts that occurred to me
Please.
in listening to this. I have 3 or 4, but just one.
Sure. Let's go for all 4. Go ahead.
Well, I'm really struck by the ability of the insight from the Gita, even the recognition of the unchanging. That's so, I'm just now talking, but it's that's so different from the West in my experiences of and kind of understanding of religion in the West. If you look at what inspired religions in the West, it's the things that changed. So change is a form of manifestation, the things that are manifesting themselves. You can see it in change. Unchange is less, let's say, less manifest. Something can be stable, and still exist. So, but recognizing recognizing that there's something in the unchanging, and then going beyond that and recognizing the unmanifest is just, I'm thunderstruck by the insight that is there.
Wonderful. Brian, do you mind, as you make a point, I will go ahead and comment on it, and then you can make the next one. Is that okay?
Okay.
Okay. So on this one, I think that at least, Gospel of John has the same point. Like God is unmanifested and is unchanging. God the Father. It is manifested through the Word that produces all things. So the all things are the forms that are produced through the Son, but there is unmanifest. There is unmanifest. There is eternal, unchanging, which is God the Father. And then you have this, God the Son in the middle, which is the Word that becomes flesh and then goes back. So it is done in different forms. Tao Te Ching, Tao is unmanifest, unchanging. element. So all these three have those elements. Now, each of them does it differently to greater or lesser amount of detail. We'll talk at length. For example, you're absolutely right that Gita talks about it at much, much greater depth and explicates it, does these very fine distinctions from this angle and that angle, which certainly, the Bible doesn't do. But that's what I would say. Please go on.
Well, the next thought that struck me, I mean, it was an insight that helped me as Yogeshwar was talking. You actually used the word, since I wrote it down, which is perspective, seeing things from a perspective, and not just light and dark. The thing that I think of when I think of that is watching the planets, not the stars, watching the planets in the night sky. The Earth, well, if you watch, the planets do not circulate in any kind of recognizable pattern in the sky. They're moving all over, each in its own different pattern, because they're not revolving around the Earth. And if you're not, let's say you're not aware of the ultimate, that to me, that's kind of analogous to standing on Earth and seeing things and seeing what you really see with your eyeballs. Right now, you would just see all these planets skipping around in the sky. But if you're able to achieve the ultimate and can imagine from the sun's perspective, then all of these planets are in a harmonious circular orbit.
Wow. Brian, that is a brilliant, brilliant point. That's a beautiful way of putting it. Because what it is saying is that this is true. Like, you can look at it in you can phrase it in multiple ways. If you do not understand laws of physics, almost everything is just separate phenomena, and you just have to say this is how this happens, but you have no idea what is actually going on, what is driving all of it. When you arrive at a universal principle, you understand it. You look at people around you. If you do not understand the principles through which they are acting, what is right, you do not get that. So what understanding of universal laws, universal principle gives you is that suddenly by you standing, I mean, again, I'm using the Indian concept here. What Naneshwar is talking about, you go and stand at the center. You make Brahma your own. You choose to be there. And moment you do that, everything makes sense. Everything is understood and everything is seen as revolving around Brahma, around these universal principles. So that's excellent, beautiful, beautiful observation. Thank you, Brian. Please go on.
I like the point that he made at the very beginning, which is that this recognition is it's not a conceptualization, it's paying attention, and it's number one, it's just logical, but it also, it makes great sense. Paying attention comes before conceptualization. But it also, if you're just paying attention, and this is the thing, this faculty within us to pay attention is what he's focusing on. If you can pay attention without judging, without analyzing, without conceptualizing, this, I think, is what I understand him to be pointing towards. It's just like, get yourself off planet Earth and into the sun. You have to be in the right perspective. That's the first movement before judgment, analysis, conceptualization is possible.
That's a great point. I mean, the only thing I would say, I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, the point is that what you're trying to do is that you're trying to pay attention. You're trying to pay attention to Brahma. You're paying attention to the universal principle. You're paying attention to the center. Now, paying attention is an active process. So it is saying, be conscious now. Be conscious now. Nothing else is a substitute for that. It is actually not, I mean, it is all for concepts. It is all for judgment. It is all for all of the things. It is not that as opposed to this. It's saying, this is first. This is first, and this is the only, and everything else you see as manifestation. So you see the emotions as manifestations of this. You see concepts as manifestations of it. You see works, actions as manifestations of it. Through your actions, through your conceptualizations, through your judgments, through your emotions, you never stop paying attention to the center, and you look at everything from that perspective. And that paying attention, the point that Yogeshwar is making, is an experience. It is the act of being present, act of being conscious now. And that is being at the center. The concepts, even if you form a concept of it, if you can very easily get attached to it. You can also be proud of the fact that you are sitting, but then you are attached to having been there instead of actually being there. So that is the hierarchy that he's talking about. Please go on, Brian.
That's it. That's all I've got.
Wonderful. Thank you. Back to Joe. Joe, folks, if anybody else has any comments or questions, I would love to hear them. Joe.
I would actually just like to go a little deeper into the role of words versus the role of sounds.
Sure.
You know, I would just like to explore that a little bit more deeply. So how does that differ from, say, the Gospel of John in this particular instance?
The big difference is that the West used writing, and the East largely, not largely, the India used spoken word. So the sound and the word are connected at the hip, and it is also focused on the presence of attention. So it is all about paying attention to what you're saying. So for example, the Japa Yajna that Yogeshwar is talking about is repeating of the word. So it is saying Om, Om,
Yeah.
Om again and again, but not mechanically. Every time you're saying it, you are bringing your attention. Or you would say like Narayana, Narayana, Narayana. Narayana is a name of Krishna or Vishnu. So when you're saying it, you are focusing your attention, and you would do that. Like they have like Sahasranam, so which is like 1,000. So you say 1,000 times. And that's what you do every day. And what it does is that it trains it is a way of training your attention on the center. It is used to train your attention on the center. Now, this is used as a technology of transformation. It is a religious technology that is used widely in the Indian context. And that is not so in the Western context. So in that sense, the sound and word are, connected. It's an oral tradition in the Indian context. So that's what I would say.
Okay. I really want to try and make a connection with Faust with that, but I won't try.
Off topic.
I won't. I know. I won't. I'm trying to
You were
sort through.
talking about the two-way that
Yes, the idea of human love, and just how essentially how human love and divine love and how that relates to grace, and how the manifest, understanding the unmanifest and the manifest, and how those two are interrelated as well. But not those two, they're kind of separate concepts and separate points. But those are my last comments about that.
Sure. Folks, if anybody else has any comments, go ahead and type a exclamation mark. I'm happy to talk about this. It's like I'm very nostalgic about this Gita meetups already, though it is a little early to be nostalgic. We are still in the midst of it, but it's winding down. So I'm happy, I would love to talk about these topics. So it's very simple. I mean, the way I would not say it's very simple, but the way I understand it.
Did you try?
Brian, just a second. Let me just go ahead. So the unmanifested and unmanifest and manifest, you can just look at it as in this context as unmanifested, unmanifest as God,
Right.
and manifest as human.
Right.
Unmanifest and manifest. So unmanifest showers grace, or God showers grace on human beings by creating them and having, giving them spirit in them, Atma, which is there in them. And that's a tremendous gift that is coming from God. Now, when a human being chooses to focus all his attention on God, there you're doing the asking, you're doing the devotion, you're doing the belief. So it completes the loop. And when that happens, the way in which Gospel of John, that gives you the right to be children of God. And that's exactly what Krishna is saying, that such a person is my loved one. So he is, Naneshwar goes one step further. He says, he is my God. That's how Naneshwar puts it, because it's like he's in the same place that like Naneshwar is standing right next to God. So in the same place when you are acting at the center. And so it is like a union of that's the God in you, and you are manifesting the God in you in your actions. So that's why, that's how you have, and you are blessed by it, in the sense that everything that is good will show through. It's the same idea. It's the identical idea in Gospel of John. It's the identical idea in Tao Te Ching. What you're saying is that when the sage acts according to the Tao, giving up the 10,000 things, there is the Wu way, there is the action which is effortless from that. So it is, but only when sage chooses to do that. So sage choosing to follow the Tao all the time, is the asking, is his love of the Tao. And the Tao gives back. Tao is already always giving, but it will give back more as it flows through him, creating Wu Wei. So that is the loop. All right, next up is Brian.
So in our last discussion, I had a thought. We're always using the idea pay attention to the center, or the unmanifest. And I just was playing little games, I guess, in my mind. How about paying attention for the center and from the center as just other ways of thinking about it? I think that you've touched on those dynamics as well. To me, the idea of paying attention for the center is that, I don't see it, or I'm not seeing from that point yet, but I'm seeking it. And then paying attention from the center, I think we talked a lot about that, but we haven't really, well, maybe you have used those words. It just struck me that paying attention, here's my thought about that, paying attention from the center. Is there any indication that we're paying attention to the manifest from the center, if that's, and one indication of that would be that, yes, things are, if you're paying attention from the center, then you start understanding them, maybe accepting them the way they are and understanding them as they are. That's just a thought.
Sure. I mean, this is a very big point in Gita. It is expressed in multiple ways. So one is, this is actually, it's the core idea of Gita, that Tattvamasi. So Atma and Brahma are the same. So, and the means through which, so when Atma loves Brahma, so Atma is the core of you. When you love Brahma, right? So you're doing things for Brahma. You are doing things towards Brahma. And Atma is Brahma. So you are actually acting from the Brahma as well. And the action itself is Brahma. So it's like all of it is the Tao. It's Tao in action. So like, for example, I forget what verse this is, but when people are eating, they have this verse that they say that the food is Brahma. The action of eating is Brahma. And I who eat the food is Brahma. So another way of looking at it in terms of sight is that there is the seer, what is seen, and the sight. So the seer is the Brahma, is the seer, it's the Atma, it is the Purusha, it is the witness. What is seen is also Brahma. Just like, we talked about it being everywhere and at the center. So the center was Brahma. What you're seeing is Brahma. And the action of seeing itself is also Brahma. So that is very, that it's a very deep formulation throughout Gita in so many different ways. Okay.
Yeah, after I said those things, it kind of struck me that we have touched on those. I like that.
Yes, absolutely. Next up is Joe. Penny, did you have anything?
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing, which is kind of a continuation from what Joe said too, but it always strikes me when, like when Yogeshwar was talking about like the rebirth, like, there's death and there's rebirth. And that when you see the Brahman, you're acting, from your Atman is basically Brahman, then you are reborn again. And since that's such the same concept, like as Christianity, every time that comes up, I'm like, I don't expect that because it doesn't seem like it's coming from there to me. in the Gita. And then when it gets there, it's kind of like, wow, that's so similar a concept.
It's exactly the same concept. It is exactly the same concept. What you're saying is that you're saying that you will be born not of man, not of blood, but of spirit, of God. So what you're saying is that whatever you have, like, I mean, this is the idea of sacrifice, of saying that whatever you have, you are giving things up which are not coming from the spirit, and you're starting over from the spirit. You're saying you're going, whatever parts of the form that you have, habits that you have, thoughts that you have, whatever of them, emotions that you have, possessions that you have that are not really going towards pursuit from the spirit, from the function, you are giving up. And in the process of giving up, you're giving up the form. You're letting that form that you had die so that you will start life again from your function or spirit again. It's the same idea, like the way in which it appears in, most prominently in Indian tradition is all the Brahmins are called Dvija, twice born. So you are born, and then when you are about 12 or 13, you have to choose. You have to say, I want to do this. I choose God. And then that is your second birth, because you're saying, now I'm going to act from this universal principle from now on. So it's a completely new life that I'm going to create. So that you're absolutely right. That's exactly the same concept. I mean, it's a different form, of course, but the base idea is the same. Thank you, Penny. Next up is Joe.
Yes, thank you. Penny is right. That really brought a lot of clarity to me, and helping me understand that. The other aspect of this is really. I'll go to Andre.
Andrea,
Yeah,
go.
let go to Andre.
Folks, anybody who has not asked the question gets the first.
No, Joseph can go on.
No.
It's just
Please go on.
Okay. Just a minor observation, and something that I have been more interested recently is, and you touched about the sound and the Om, and so I was thinking of the importance of the mantra in a way, right? To get connected to the present, to this concentration and attention. And then I was thinking, how could I relate this to form and function? Because this is the sound, and sound is vibration. So the vibration that you expect to unite with the divine, right? So I'm just thinking aloud to myself, because I'm really interested in this connection of the mantra, or that's oral tradition, right? That is different when you have something written that you can read later, and your attention is not to that moment, but based on the oral tradition, your connection to, let's say, to the divine is really is much more focused and much more with your attention for that.
Wonderful. Excellent.
I'm just thinking aloud. Sorry, maybe it's too late for me here already.
Andrea, that's an excellent question. The best as I understand it, what you're trying to do when you are chanting a mantra, this is the japa yajna, that Krishna was talking about. The Japa Yajna he's saying is the highest of Yajna. Okay, that's what he was saying. So the question is, why is Krishna saying that this mantra is Japa Yajna? Japa means you keep repeating. Okay, so what are you doing when you do that? So what is actually being done when you say Om, Om, or Narayan, Narayan? It doesn't matter what. It could be like Om, Tat, Sat. It could be multiple sounds. Okay, so sounds don't really matter. They are just something that they are just part of the tools. So what is the function? So what is a function and form, right? The function that the Japa Yajna is achieving is you paying attention to God, to Brahma, to universal principles. It is a reminder for you. You're using your sound, your speech to draw your attention and keep your attention on the center. Attention is the function. That is our function. That is the Purusha. That is the witness. You are using the repetition. It is not really the repetition. It is not experienced as repetition. It is experienced as awareness and keeping of attention on that particular, on Narayan, on Om, on Brahma. That is the function. And what is the form? Forms are things that would normally get your attention. Your mind will wander. You will feel different emotions. You will act habitually. You're giving that up in order to keep your attention. Now, the beauty of this is that all our minds will wander. What you do is that by repetition, you keep trying your best to keep your attention there. So, like, for example, none of this, I mean, what happens is it's very easy to do things mechanically and think you will get something from it, and you will get something from it. But this is the reason, this is the function of it. The function of the mantra is to be aware in the present now and to sustain, use the sound to sustain that awareness. That is the function. Does that answer the question?
Yes, yes. Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Okay, wonderful. Next up is Evanik.
Okay. Well, Andre brought up something for me, and for me, it's kind of like when Yogeshwar was saying, about rituals, using, someone who has reached the level to get to know the ultimate, right? If they get to know the ultimate, they can use the rituals to get to the ultimate, but they can also not use the rituals to get to the ultimate. And I was thinking of that when Andrea was talking about the mantra. And it's like, if it brings you closer to God, great. And if it doesn't do anything for you, also very good. Because if you're truly focused on what's going to bring you to God, you're going to use the forms that bring you to God. It's not that the forms are bad. It's just when you lose focus on the function, then you've lost focus on the center. And that's where you notice that you're drifting and you have to bring yourself back. And maybe it's a different form that brings you back to the center.
Yeah, excellent point. I mean, the point that Yogeshwar was making is that, the rituals were originally designed as ways of getting you to the center. Like mantra is a very good example. Like mantras were designed so that you will focus be aware, focus on the center. Now, what happens is that there are ways of using mantra where you're not even doing that. You're saying, okay, look, I'm supposed to say these many times. I did my job. That's it. Okay. And you just do it in a mechanical way. And that's not really, and then pretend that you are actually going to the center. I mean, that's the worst thing, where you replace the ritual for the spirit. So you can have that ritual, and when you actually see somebody being in the present, you don't even notice it, and you don't think it is anything. So that's the example of, in Gospel of John, the Pharisees who are holding on to the ritual, and they can't see the fact that this person has made a blind man see, and they can't even see that. Okay, so it's like even when there is a very clear manifestation of the function in front of them, they don't see it, because those rituals have completely lost the function in them, in their minds. At the same time, these rituals that are designed were actually designed, some of them have been designed really well. So even though you're doing the mantra and it is not working for you, if you keep at it, and if you understand that that's what you're trying to do, you're trying to keep your attention to your center, you can actually make progress using it. So you can look, so there are those three things. And if you're already at the center, you don't really need the ritual. You can be doing the ritual or not be doing the ritual, and you would still be at the center. So it's like you have that, you have things in the middle, and you have things where you are actually trying to pretend to be at the center while turning away from it, using ritual to just tell people that, look, I am at the center because I'm saying these things. Okay, thank you. Next up is Joe. Joe, sorry to interrupt, and thank you for your patience.
No, I appreciate everybody's comments. I would rather more everybody comment rather than myself speak. The one thing I keep coming back to when and as the Gita as a whole, is that to understand, in order to do any of this, we have to understand ourselves, and we have to understand what is really at our core driving us, in order to be able to focus and meditate on the center. That is absolutely, and that kind of realization and that process allows us to have the discipline that we need in order to do all the other things that we're even talking about, even the ritualistic aspects of things, even it's this understanding oneself in order to interact with our others.
I mean, what I would say is that is Jnana Yoga. So what you're saying,
right,
understanding yourself, is simply Jnana Yoga. And what Gita is holding is that, yes, that's a path. But the path of devotion is another path. And the path of work is another part. And whatever you can do, like Krishna is saying, pay attention to the center. You can do it with your heart, you can do it with your mind, you can do it with your body. Do all you can. That's what it is saying, and that's what he's saying. And what happens is that all of these things, build on one another. So you start, you do whatever you can. Like, for example, if you're more intellectual, you lead with Jnana Yoga. If you're more emotional, you lead with devotion or Bhakti Yoga. If you're, more on kind of physical action, doing physical action, you do that. And in each of the cases, just keep your attention on the center, and that gets you, and actually you end up making progress on all the three. That's what Gita is saying.
And that's one of the fundamental differences, though, that I see between, say, Christianity and the Gita, is that it gives you so many different paths to the center. Whereas I feel like Christianity is much more structured in how you get to what would be that they consider the center.
Yeah, I mean, it depends. I mean, the thing is that, look, I have, you know, all of you folks actually have, you know, are very familiar with Christianity, kind of grew up with Christianity, and
Yeah.
you know, many of the things are taken, and a lot of the things there are ritualistic, and so many of the aspects of how you think about Christianity is dominated by all the rituals that are there. Now, the thing is that it's exactly reverse for me. Like in the Indian tradition, I grew up there, so I have, and all the traditions are full of rituals, okay, and all kind of more superficial ways of looking at it. So I grew up with all of that. Now, I look at Christianity purely from just by going to the text and trying to understand it and trying to look at, you know, and when I do that, I see the same kind of profundity. Things are expressed in very different ways, but I see a very deep commonality between that. So the difference is, and in any case, your purpose is not to say, oh, this is limited or anything like that. Your purpose is actually to go to God, you know, is to become, to have that flow through you, to act from the center, you know, kind of let life kind of break in on you and break out. I mean, that's what you're trying to do. And all these traditions, the extent to which they do it are orders of magnitude higher than the ideas that are prevalent in the modern culture. And so that's why, you know, I think just kind of, you know, taking whatever, I mean, the way I look at it is, again, it's a very Indian way of looking at it. Like, there is the Gospel of John yoga. You can do that yoga. There is a path. There is definitely a path there. There is certainly a path of Tao Te Ching, which is there. And it is completely, it looks to me, when done right, it is quite consistent with Bhakti Yoga. Or like, you can look at it like a separate yoga. That's a very Indian way of looking at it. All these yogas, you know, so there are now, you can add like 5 yogis. There's Bhakti Yoga, there is Karma Yoga, there is Jnana Yoga, there is Jnana Yoga, and then there is Tao Yoga. And that is exactly the way in which Indian mind works. And I think it is complete. I mean, I personally feel it's equivalent. The way I understand it is equivalent. I don't know whether I'm not understanding it. I'm understanding it differently than other people, whether I'm missing something, I don't know. But the way, from where I understand it, the core of it is saying things which are the same. There are manifestations which are very different, but that's how I see it. But I would love to hear what you guys see, because you know the Bible much better than I. We'll go to Evanik and come back to Joe. Is that okay?
Sure.
Okay, Evanik, go ahead.
Yeah, the way I see it is I can see all 3 yokes in Christianity, I guess, because, you know, some people use the Bible as, you know, knowledge, and that's how they if they use that to connect to Christ, which is the center. Bhakti Yoga, which is love. Some people, you know, use the Bible as a guide, but it's not their primary way of getting to Christ. Their primary way of getting to Christ is to love other people as Christ loved other people. And then there's Karma Yoga, where people feel like, you know, they do works of charity, works of love, to get to the center and to connect with God that way. And in that sense, I see it as similar. And I also see it as, you know, if you merge the two, you're all going for the same thing, to go to the center. And I think the key is the person. However you get to the center is fine. But I think for Joe's point, I see where he's coming from, because in a sense there is that one path, And in Christianity and institutional Christianity, they don't recognize any other religion as getting to Christ. I think it's kind of like some people are just kind of like, well, they're not following that anymore. But for institutional Christianity, it's definitely like there's only one way and there's Christ. So I can see Joe's point, but I can also see all three yokes coming together. And I think it's all the same thing, no matter how you get there, just get there. That's my theory.
No, a wonderful point. And I would love to hear what everybody else has to say, let's on this topic itself, what similarities and differences that you see in the Bible and Bhagavad Gita, because that is going to actually enable us to understand both better. And I completely agree with what Evanique said. Like, for example, the biggest place where you see Karma Yoga in Gospel of John is building of the church. That's work. That is work of building, city of God. That's the work of building the church, the community, everything that you do for it. And you see that as a very prominent part of the way in which it is practiced. The, Holy Spirit, love, all of that is pure bhakti yoga, And there is, of course, the entire tradition of the people like Aquinas. That is just jnana yoga, of trying to understand the word as best as you possibly can. And that too is a very large tradition. So all these three traditions are there in Christianity. Now, of course, all kinds of things can go wrong. And believe me, there are all kinds of things that go wrong in Indian religions too. And that is a characteristic of all religions, not just religions, all ideas and all philosophies have these versions. But so that's how I see it. But would love to hear what everybody thinks. Joe, followed by Brian. Joe. No, Brian.
I think I agree with everything Evanique said. Since you asked, I'm commenting. Agree with everything Evanique said. I agree with everything you've said. Each of you is bringing his or her own perspective to it. And yeah, we do. I think having grown up in it, we're less sensitive, I think, to some of the points that you pick out. So I really appreciate your picking them out and highlighting them. Plus, by doing all three, we can see what is kind of important in all three of them. The essential, the ultimate in all three, and I think that's really very good. So, I could say more, but I think that's really the essential part.
Wonderful. Thank you. Joe, did you have anything?
I did. I mean, I think, and I agree with everything that Evanique said. I think that when I'm starting to see it, I almost get the feeling when I read, and I'm going to bring in another philosophy, is when I read Confucius and read about ritual, I think of dogmatic Catholicism, like very ritualistic Catholicism.
I'm not surprised, because Confucius is like, this is again, I don't understand this Confucian. I've never really looked at. I've read analytics, but not really dived into it. It is like an implementation, like administrative implementation of Taoism. It is trying to do that. So the focus is on administration. It is focused on hierarchy and all of it. It is about the mechanisms of it. So yes, but none of it, neither of it, like the dogmatic Catholicism or dogmatic thing. There is dogmatic Indian religion too, and that has a very different characteristic. That's not the nature of Tao Te Ching. Not like Tao Te Ching. It is not like Bhagavad Gita, and it is not like Gospel of John.
Right.
So they have very different. So I'm I know that religious institutions and social institutions can do a lot of damage to this. This is true of church. This is true of the Chinese government or Chinese monarchy, which is largely Confucian. But that doesn't, okay. So I completely grant that point.
Yeah, no, and so I was saying where my eyes are being open to a little bit more is seeing the relationship between Christianity, Taoism, and the Gita. That's where I'm starting to see the connections, is that once I get outside of the more ritualistic approach towards Christianity and start to look at its core message, you can start to see the connections between all three of these much more clearly. So that's why I was I'm sorry.
Sure. No. The other thing I would say is that I'm not, the thing is, I am very scared to talk to religious people typically, because most religious people do not actually get this, because they tend to be far more traditional. I'm very selective. It's like, because I really think, and this is true both for Indian as well as Christian. There are few people who deal with Christianity at this level, but most people don't. And they are really, their entire thinking, and same thing with Indian, like Hinduism. Most people cannot handle Hinduism at this level. They will just keep falling into all kinds of rituals, and they will actually judge you by saying, are you following this or you're not following this? And okay, you're not actually, you're I don't know. But what I'm saying is that I'm not saying that most people today in America religious people handle religion like what we are doing. Most people don't. And the same thing is true for India. But what I am saying is that when you do look at the text itself, like Gospel of John, and let it speak to you direct, and try to understand it as best as you can. And same, you do that with Tao Te Ching, when you do that with Bhagavad Gita, I find that it has tremendous life-giving power, and something that is deeply spiritual. It actually appeals to your reason, emotion, and action, and you're at the core of your being. So it is just incredible to see that these things actually exist, and these have been parts of these traditions. And it is really, sad to see how far China, India, and the West has gone from the core of it. I'm not saying that kind of going forward, these are the answers, but these are the things that we can build on to shed all the forms that are stopping us from operating at this level. We'll need to develop very new forms to bring it fully operational. But this actually gives you like a starting point of saying, look, this actually connects to you as a human being at a deep level. Can you do something with it? And I think the answer is yes. It is really profound for me. And I come at it from not being religious. And I see this fully integrated with science as well. I see the same attitude as seen in Newton or Darwin or Lavoisier. They have exactly the same attitude. And none of the modern scientists, or most of the modern scientists, are completely against it. They're all ritualistic people, just like the religion people. So it's something that the world has lost, and it's worth retrieving. So that's how I think about it.
I think that's beautifully said.
Wonderful. Brian, any last points, Brian or Evanik, before we close up?
No, I really, really enjoyed this meetup.
Me
Yes.
too.
I think this structure is working very well. So I want to use, to let Yogeshwar use his time to do the summaries, and then we can have a nice discussion afterwards, as long as you want. All right. Thank you very much. See you tomorrow. Remember, it's going to be tomorrow and then day after. So it's Friday and
At what time on Saturday?
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
Okay.
All right. All right.
All right.
See you. Bye.
All right. Take care.